I've worked hard to climb the corporate ladder, so when they offered me the chance to join the executive loyalty program, I couldn't say no. The promise of career advancement was too tempting. The invitation came through an encrypted email marked with the company's official seal. Exclusive opportunity for selected employees. It felt like a reward for all my late nights, all the weekends spent working through the mess others left behind. This was my time to finally break through. The first meeting was held in a sleek, private room on the top floor. A dozen other employees sat around a polished table, their faces mostly unfamiliar. Everyone looked nervous but excited, as if they all knew this was their big break too. The leader of the program, a middle-aged man named Wilson, stood at the head of the table with a clipboard in hand. He smiled too much. "Congratulations to all of you," he began, his voice smooth and confident. "This program is designed to elevate those who have proven themselves worthy. We will push you beyond your limits. Yes, but in the end, you will come out on top. We are building something here that will last." I watched the others nod, their eyes wide with anticipation. I felt the pressure building in my chest, but I told myself it was just part of the process. I could handle whatever came next. The first few weeks were grueling. We were given tasks, endless tasks, that felt more like tests of loyalty than actual work. We had to betray people, not in obvious ways, but small ones. Withhold important information. Sabotage colleagues just a little, so they'd fail to meet deadlines. Do whatever it took to make sure we stood out. No one said it outright, but it was clear. If you didn't play the game, you'd be eliminated. There were no second chances. At first, I tried to justify it. After all, I was promised success. I'd be promoted, my salary would skyrocket. I could stop worrying about how to pay bills. I could stop seeing my family struggle. I was in control, but as the days passed, I started to notice the shifts in everyone's behavior. People were turning on each other, whispering behind backs, throwing each other under the bus to secure their place. At the beginning, it was subtle, like small cracks appearing in a seemingly perfect wall. But soon it was undeniable. The more I climbed the ranks, the more I saw the truth. The program wasn't about advancement. It was about erasing people, making them disappear. The challenges grew darker. We were tasked with destroying the reputations of higher-ups, people who were seen as threats to the company's ultimate goals. But each time I participated, I felt less like a human and more like a pawn in a game I couldn't escape. And I wasn't the only one feeling it. There were whispers of the program's true purpose, eliminating those who could not be manipulated, creating a group of people willing to do anything for power. But the whispers were dangerous. The program's leader, Wilson, had eyes everywhere. One day it hit me. I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. I had been asked to ruin someone I genuinely respected, a colleague I'd worked with for years. The orders were clear. If I didn't comply, I'd be out. And the worst part was I was considering it. I wasn't sure anymore if I had the courage to walk away, or if I had become so addicted to the power I thought I could gain that I'd lost everything else. But then something happened that made my decision for me. It was a Friday afternoon, and I was sitting in my office reviewing the latest instructions from the program. I was exhausted. My mind was full of empty calculations. How to climb higher, how to manipulate better, how to win. Then I received an email, no subject, just a message. "You're next. Do you want to leave? Or do you want to become part of the story?" I stared at the screen, feeling my stomach drop. It was a threat, clear and direct. It wasn't just about the program anymore. They knew what I was thinking. They knew I was considering quitting. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. Leaving wasn't an option anymore. They controlled everything. There was no leaving. Not unless I wanted to disappear, just like so many others who had been part of this program before me. I tried to reach out to a friend I'd made during the program, someone I trusted. I texted her, asking if she had received anything similar. I waited for hours, no response. Finally, late that night, I saw the notification. You're not alone, but they're watching. Do nothing, and you'll be free. The message didn't make sense. I didn't know who sent it, but I knew it was a warning. But it was too late. I wasn't free. No one was. The next day, I walked into the office, ready to meet Wilson for our next task. My heart was racing, my palms sweaty. But when I arrived, everything was different. The office was eerily quiet. There were no people at their desks. No noise. I looked around, confused. That's when I saw it. The door to the private room where the program was run was wide open. I walked in, my steps echoing through the silence. And then I saw it, the files on the table. My name was at the top of the list, crossed out, along with a dozen others. I realized then that the program wasn't just eliminating people from the company. It was erasing them entirely. Those who didn't make the cut didn't just lose their jobs. They lost their lives. I backed away from the table, my legs shaking. The door slammed behind me, and I knew it was too late. I was already a part of the story. It's late, too late to be picking up passengers, but the ride request comes through anyway. It's a familiar name, someone I've driven before. A late-night pickup. The destination is a quiet part of town, one of those out-of-the-way places where you're lucky if you get a response when you knock. The fare's good, and that's all that matters to me tonight. When I pull up to the address, the passenger is already waiting outside, their figure outlined against the streetlights. The moment they get into the car, I feel the shift in the air. There's an odd tension, something sharp about their presence. They're wearing a dark suit, a little too formal for the hour. Their face hidden behind a pair of thick sunglasses despite the late hour. Where to? I ask, trying to break the silence. The usual. The passenger replies, their voice low, like they've been practicing how to speak with no emotion. It's unsettling. Just drive. I glance at them through the rearview mirror. There's something about the way they sit, rigid, focused. Their hands are clenched in their lap, and the silence between us presses down like a weight. I pull away from the curb and hit the gas, following the route I've been given. The streets are empty, quiet. As I make my way through the city, the feeling that something isn't right grows stronger. My passenger remains still, staring straight ahead, and I can't shake the sense that they're waiting for something. Then the phone rings. It's a text, an anonymous number. You're being watched. My skin prickles. I can't explain it, but something about that message feels real, like a warning, not just a prank. I glance over at the passenger in the back seat. There's a flicker of something in their expression, just for a second, a shift in the air, the tightening of their jaw. But they say nothing. I continue driving, trying to shake off the paranoia creeping up my spine. That's when I see it. A black SUV that's been tailing us for the past few blocks. I try to dismiss it, but it's there, keeping a steady distance. My heart begins to race. Can you tell me who's following us? I ask, my voice steady but tight. The passenger doesn't answer immediately. They simply stare out the window for a long moment, then turn to face me. Keep driving. Don't stop. Their tone is firm, colder than before, like they know something I don't. I take a deep breath and focus on the road. The SUV stays behind us, its headlights glaring into the mirror. The tension between us builds with every mile. I reach an intersection, and for a split second, I hesitate. The SUV is right there, almost on top of us now. But something doesn't feel right. The streets are empty, no one else around. I feel trapped in a game, and I don't know the rules. Suddenly, the passenger speaks again. Turn left. There's a place ahead where you can stop. I'll give you instructions from there. I don't know why, but I obey. Maybe it's the way they say it, like they already know what's going to happen next. I swing the car left and head down a narrow, poorly lit street. The SUV doesn't follow. I don't know if I should feel relieved or terrified. I pull into a quiet alleyway. The passenger instructs me to stop and turn off the engine. I don't argue. Now, get out, they say, their voice cold but authoritative. My mind races. What's going on? Who are they? But they don't answer. Instead, they open the back door and step out, moving quickly, as though they've done this 100 times. Before I can react, the passenger slams the door shut behind them. I sit in the car, my hands gripping the wheel, my thoughts scattered. There's a sinking feeling in my stomach, something instinctual telling me that I've crossed a line I can't undo. A moment later, the SUV pulls into the alley. It stops behind me. The door opens and another figure steps out. It's another man, but his expression is different, cold, calculating. He doesn't look at me. Instead, his eyes focus on the passenger, who is already walking toward him. The exchange between them is brief, a whisper of words I can't hear. Then, just as quickly as it began, the passenger returns to the car, sliding back in without a word. I start the engine again, but before I can ask anything, they speak. Drive. Don't stop until you're out of town, they command. The atmosphere in the car has changed. They're not a passenger anymore. They're a person of power, pulling strings I don't understand. I do as they say, my foot heavy on the gas. The city lights blur past as I drive. No destination, no clear path. Hours go by, and finally, we reach the outskirts. No more cars, no more people. Just empty roads and the hum of the engine. The passenger clears their throat. You've been following me for a long time now, they say, their voice finally breaking the silence. You've been useful, but it's time for you to leave. I stare at them, confusion flooding my thoughts. What do you mean? What's going on? You've been part of the plan, they reply, their words sharp like a knife. And now you're not. Leave now, or we'll both regret it. They hand me an envelope, thick, sealed with a wax stamp. You won't remember me after this night. Go home, forget this happened. Forget me. My stomach twists as I take the envelope. They don't wait for me to speak. Without a word, they open the door and step out. I don't know what to do. I don't know who they are. But I know this. I'm not supposed to know. I drive away, and when I look in the rearview mirror, the passenger is gone. They never existed. The only thing left is the envelope sitting heavy in my lap, its contents unknown. I don't know what I was thinking when I signed up. It seemed like a good cause, disaster relief for a region devastated by a recent hurricane. I had no idea what I was getting into, no idea what would be waiting for me once I stepped through the doors of the headquarters. The building is unimpressive, a modest structure that looks like any other office space. But the moment I walk inside, I feel a strange energy in the air. It's not fear exactly, but something colder, something unsettling. The staff move quickly, their faces stern and unwelcoming. No one speaks to me unless necessary. And when they do, their words are clipped businesslike. Nos mais. They show me around, explain the tasks I'll be handling, and assign me a work area. But there's something off about it. The back hallways are off limits, and the few employees who have access to these areas speak in hushed tones, never making eye contact. I try not to let it bother me. After all, it's just a volunteer position. I'm here to help. But as the days pass, I notice more things that don't add up. The constant stream of supplies that arrives. Unmarked, unlisted, no inventory. The night shifts where staff members slip in and out of the restricted areas, carrying documents or packages wrapped in plastic. And then there's the room down the hall, the one I'm not allowed to enter. There's always a guard standing outside, watching anyone who comes too close. I try to ask questions, but I get nowhere. The answers I receive are vague, and the staff's unease becomes more palpable. Every time I press, the response is the same. You're here to help. Just focus on your tasks. But curiosity gets the best of me. One evening, when the building is quiet, I follow one of the staff members who has been sneaking into the restricted area. She looks over her shoulder as she enters the hallway, and I quickly duck out of sight. I wait for a few minutes before slipping down the corridor, the sound of my footsteps muffled by the thick carpet. I pause by the door she entered, and I hear voices coming from inside, urgent, hushed voices. The door is slightly cracked, and I push it open just enough to peer inside. What I see shocks me. There's a room full of financial documents, records of donations, invoices, everything one would expect. But there's something wrong with them. They're not just records of aid. They're transactions, huge sums of money being funneled into private accounts, offshore accounts, places that have nothing to do with disaster relief. I take a step back, the weight of what I've seen sinking in. I don't know what's worse, the fact that they're stealing from people who need help, or that I've just uncovered something that no one was supposed to know about. I turn to leave, but as I do, the door swings open. The woman I was following is standing there, a cold smile on her face. I knew you'd find it, she says, her voice almost too calm. But you shouldn't have. I freeze. My mind races. What does she mean? Who is she? Before I can say anything, the guard steps forward, blocking the hallway. I am trapped. There's no way out now. You've seen too much, the woman says, her smile widening. We can make this easy for you. Just stay quiet, and everything will be fine. I try to protest, but the guard grabs my arm, his grip uncomfortably tight. You have a choice, the woman says. Keep quiet, or we'll make sure this never leaves the building. No one will believe you. No one will care. I try to pull away, but they're already leading me down the hall, away from the room and the documents. The fear settles in my chest like a stone. The truth doesn't matter. Not anymore. They take me into a small office and sit me down. The woman places a stack of papers in front of me. Sign this, she says, her voice almost soothing. It's just an agreement to keep silent. No one gets hurt if you do. My hand shakes as I look at the document. I know what it says without reading it, an agreement to stay quiet, to pretend I never saw anything. I want to tear it up, to scream, to run. But the guard's eyes are locked on me, his expression hard and unyielding. I won't sign, I say, barely recognizing my own voice. The woman's smile fades. She leans closer, her tone lowering to a whisper. Then we'll make sure you never get to leave. You'll be just another volunteer who got too curious. No one will ever remember your name. I hesitate for a moment, fear surging through me, but something snaps inside. I stand up abruptly, pushing past the guard. The woman tries to stop me, but I push her away. I don't know if I'll make it out alive, but I can't just give in. I run through the hallways, but the building feels like it's closing in on me. The walls, the doors, they're all blocking me. I reach the main entrance, but as I pull the door, it won't budge. It's locked. And then, from behind me, I hear the woman's voice again. You should have stayed quiet. The door opens with a sudden force, and I stumble out into the night air. The chill of the outside world hits me like a slap, but I don't look back. I don't know if I'm safe, but I won't stop running until I'm far away from that place. I can never go back. I can never let anyone know what I found out. But they'll keep looking for me, and I'll be watching over my shoulder for the rest of my life. The call comes in the dead of night, as it always does. I'm used to the odd hours and strange requests, being an environmental scientist. But this one is different. The oil rig I've been asked to inspect has been abandoned for years. The company claims it's been decommissioned, but the report says otherwise. There's something off about it. Still, it's work, and we're in need of answers. We board the chopper at dawn. The ride is uneventful, but the further we get from the mainland, the more I begin to sense something amiss. The rig looms in the distance, a skeletal structure rising from the waves like a forgotten monument. It's rusted, decayed, nothing like the sleek, modern rigs I've worked on. The wind is heavier here, and the sky seems unnaturally overcast. When we land, I'm greeted by a man in a faded jumpsuit. He barely acknowledges us, only gesturing toward the rig stairs. Just routine, he mutters before disappearing into the shadows. There's an unspoken tension in his voice that I can't quite place, but we push on. As we enter the main structure, the first thing I notice is the smell. It's the kind of stale, metallic odor you get from a place that's been untouched for too long. But there's something else too, a faint trace of rot, like something decaying just out of sight. I try to shake it off. It's an old rig after all. The floors creak under my boots, and the air feels thick, stagnant. We start our inspection in the lower levels. The dim lights flicker as we move deeper into the rig, and I begin to see the first signs of decay. There are strange markings on the walls, like they've been scraped it over and over. I reach out to touch one, but something stops me. The temperature seems to drop suddenly, and I feel a chill run down my spine. My colleague, Dean, who's ahead of me, stops and looks back, his face pale. I don't know about this, he says, his voice shaking. Something doesn't feel right. Before I can respond, a noise echoes from the darkness, a low hum, followed by what sounds like distant shouting. My heart races. What was that? I whisper. Dean shrugs, but his eyes are wide. We continue walking, our steps echoing down the hall. The noise intensifies, growing louder. Then I hear something I wasn't expecting, voices. Whispering voices. They seem to come from everywhere, as if the rig itself is alive, speaking to us from the walls. We reach a room at the far end of the hallway. Inside, I see something that makes my stomach twist. It's a control room, but it's not just filled with the usual equipment. On the walls, old journals are scattered, along with photographs that seem to have been taken years ago. The faces in the photos are familiar, men and women who worked here long before us. Their eyes are wide, their expressions haunting. But what's worse is the date written on the bottom of one, 1997. I flip through the journals, but they're not normal logs. They're detailed accounts of strange happenings. Missing workers, unexplained noises, experiments that shouldn't have been happening on an oil rig. I feel my pulse quicken. This was no ordinary operation. It was something else, something darker. Suddenly, I hear a noise behind me. I turn, but the door slams shut. My heart drops. I don't know if it's the wind or something else, but it feels like we're being locked in. The hum grows louder, almost deafening. I bang on the door, but there's no answer. My other colleagues are nowhere to be seen. Panic sets in as I start searching for a way out. The hum now becomes a sharp, mechanical whirring, and the walls seem to close in. I stumble over the debris, my mind racing. There's something alive in this place, something that never left. The air feels heavier now, and I hear the unmistakable sound of footsteps behind me. Slow, deliberate. But when I turn, there's no one there. Dean's voice breaks through the silence. He's calling my name, but it sounds distorted, distant. I follow the sound, but it leads me to another room. This one smaller, more confined. As I enter, I freeze. Inside, there's a single chair, bolted to the floor, and beside it, a wall of monitors. On the screens, I see images of the rig from decades ago, workers, equipment, and something else. A figure lurking in the shadows. And then I see something that makes my blood run cold. The figure on the screen is staring right at me. A door opens behind me, and I turn just in time to see the same figure step into the room. It's one of the missing workers, his face pale and gaunt, his eyes hollow. He reaches out to me, and I step back, my breath shallow. "You shouldn't have come," he says, his voice raspy. I don't wait to hear anything else. I run. I don't look back. But no matter how fast I move, I can feel the air closing in. The rig isn't just abandoned. It's a prison, and I'm the latest inmate. As I reach the exit, I hear the door lock behind me. The helicopter is nowhere in sight. The rig's hum grows louder, and the figure's voice echoes in my mind. "You'll never leave." And for the first time, I wonder if I ever will. I've always hated the late-night commute, the quiet hum of the train, the empty cars that seem to stretch on forever. It's unsettling. But tonight is different. It starts as a typical ride home, but when I glance at my watch, something feels off. The train is supposed to stop at the next station, but we pass it. The lights flicker, and the air feels thick, like it's pressing against me. I look around. The other passengers, there are only a handful, seem unfazed. They don't notice that the train isn't stopping. Their eyes are vacant, staring ahead or at their phones, unaware of the strange shift in the atmosphere. The silence is broken only by the soft rumble of the train moving faster than usual. My stomach churns. The car begins to feel smaller, more confined. It's as if the walls are closing in. I stand up to stretch my legs, but when I pass through the connecting doors to the next car, it's gone. I'm on my own. There's no other car, no sound of doors opening or closing. Just an empty, endless hallway where the rest of the train should be. Panic surges through me as I return to my seat. The other passengers are still there, frozen in place. Then the overhead lights flicker again, and the speakers crackle to life. A distorted voice, cold and mechanical, fills the air. You've been chosen for an experiment in group dynamics. The rules are simple. You'll follow orders or face consequences. I freeze. My heart pounds in my chest as the voice continues. The rules will be explained in time. But for now, remember, trust no one. My hands tremble as I glance around. The other passengers silent expressionless, don't react. They don't even seem to acknowledge the voice. It's like they're already playing their parts in this twisted game. A man sitting across from me shifts uncomfortably. I catch his eye, and for a brief moment I see fear. It's gone almost instantly, replaced by an eerie calm. He turns his head back toward the front of the train. Something's wrong with him. Something's wrong with all of them. The train jerks violently, and then nothing. We stop in the middle of a pitch-black tunnel. The air is thick, suffocating. It's silent. Too silent. I don't know how much time has passed, but it feels like hours. There's a muffled noise coming from the back of the train. It's faint, distant at first, but it grows louder. A scream. It's so sudden, so raw, that my blood runs cold. One of the passengers has vanished. There's no sign of them, no explanation. Just an empty seat, an abandoned bag. I stand up, looking at the others, but no one moves. No one acknowledges it. They just sit there staring into nothing. I start to move toward the front of the train, but the voice returns, echoing through the speaker. A passenger has broken the rules. They will be removed. You all have a choice to make. My pulse races. I can feel the sweat on my skin as I try to breathe through the fear. One of you must be sacrificed, the voice continues. Choose now, or face the consequences together. The others remain still, frozen in place, but my mind races. Who will they choose? Who am I supposed to choose? The thought of picking someone to die, someone who's sitting right there, just as terrified as I am, paralyzes me. The man I caught eyeing me earlier stands up. He's moving slowly, deliberately, like he's been programmed. He steps toward the door of the car, but before I can say anything, he stops. He turns around and faces me, his eyes blank. Then he speaks, his voice hollow. It's you, he says. You're the one who has to decide. Before I can react, the lights flicker again. The train jerks forward, and the speakers buzz to life once more. You've made your choice. Consequences will follow. The doors open. The man walks out into the dark tunnel, disappearing from sight. I sit back down, my hands shaking, but I don't feel like I'm in control anymore. Whatever game this is, whatever this train has become, I'm no longer a part of it. It's as if I'm watching myself from the outside, unable to stop what's happening. Another scream echoes from the next car, but I can't bring myself to move. I don't want to know. The walls close in, the doors lock, and the train speeds off into the dark. I realize now, the game doesn't end. Not until it's over. And it's never over. I never thought I'd be one of those people, desperate enough to consider something like this. But here I am, sitting in the sterile waiting room of an exclusive fertility clinic. The receptionist is kind, but there's an eerie calm in her eyes. I clutch my husband's hand, feeling the weight of the moment. We've been trying to get pregnant for years. Every doctor we've seen tells us the same thing. There's nothing physically wrong, but the months turn into years. Our friends have children, while we sit in silence, watching their lives unfold. So when we heard about this clinic, its promise of cutting-edge treatment, we felt like we had no choice. The clinic's reputation is impeccable. Word of mouth, testimonials from couples who'd struggled for years, just like us, and finally found success. The waiting list that told us was long, months, maybe even a year. But then a woman in the lobby whispered something to my husband about skipping the line. For a special price, she added. The offer felt too good to pass up, and after weeks of talking it over, we decided to pay the price. It doesn't take long for things to spiral out of control. It starts with the odd charges on our credit card. At first, I think it's just an error, but it happens again. Large, unexplainable amounts. I try calling the clinic, but no one answers. Meanwhile, the visits from staff at our home begin. First a knock at the door late one evening, then another visit the following week. They're polite, clinical, but I can feel the tension in the air. I don't trust them. The worst part comes one night when I'm lying in bed, my hand on my stomach. I feel nauseous, a deep, aching discomfort. It's not normal. I go to the bathroom, and that's when I see a small scar just above my navel. I don't remember getting it. It's not even fresh. It looks like it's been there for a while. My heart races, panic creeping up my throat. I don't tell my husband at first. He's busy, absorbed in his work, and I don't want to burden him. But when the pain doesn't subside, I break down and show him. His face goes pale. "This wasn't here before," he says, his voice shaking. "You've been to the clinic alone, haven't you?" I nod. The realization hits us both at the same time. We've been lied to. The program isn't what it seemed. The moment the clinic took our money, they took something else too. Something we didn't understand until now. The next day, I go through the paperwork we signed. I can feel the weight of it pressing down on me as I search for any mention of what's really happening here. And then I find it, the clause buried in the fine print. Post-conception involvement required. It doesn't make sense. I'm not pregnant. Am I? I can't be. But then I remember the tests, the injections, the pills, the constant monitoring. They've been controlling every aspect of this, and we didn't even know. I try to confront the clinic. I make an appointment, demanding answers. When I get there, the receptionist leads me to a back office, where I'm met by the same woman who gave me the offer to skip the line. She's calm, too calm, as she explains that they've already started the process. Whatever that means, we can offer you a choice, she says, her tone flat, almost rehearsed. Continue with the program, or we'll have to terminate your involvement. You won't receive any refunds, and we will be forced to pursue legal action. This is a legal contract, after all. I freeze. Terminate my involvement? What does that even mean? The woman doesn't flinch. You've already been chosen. You're part of the program now. The child is not yours. It belongs to the clinic. You'll have to comply with the terms. My mind races. This is madness. But before I can process the information, a security guard enters the room. The woman stands and motions for him to escort me out. Your decision has been made for you, she says, her voice cold. You're lucky. There are others who didn't comply. They're no longer with us. I don't understand what's happening, but I know one thing for sure. I'm in deeper than I ever realized. I leave the clinic feeling a growing sense of dread. I don't know who to turn to, but I can't go back. I can't let them take what's mine, even if it's not fully mine to begin with. My husband doesn't know the full story. He doesn't know how far I've gone. I won't tell him, not yet. But one thing is clear. We've stepped into a nightmare, and I can't wake up from it. The clinic calls the next day. I don't pick up, and for the first time, I feel like I'm fighting for my life. The first time I notice something strange is when I try to speak to my neighbor. It's a simple greeting, just a good morning, but she doesn't respond. No smile, no nod, nothing. She simply looks through me, then hurries away. I shrug it off. Maybe she's just shy, but it happens again and again. The longer I stay in this newly gentrified district, the more I realize how strange the people are. They're all like this, avoiding eye contact, barely speaking, moving quickly like they want to disappear. I'm a journalist, eager to cover the transformation of the neighborhood, but there's something off. People don't talk to me. The new businesses, the renovated apartments, everything looks pristine, but the residents seem hollow. They move around the streets as if they're part of some unspoken agreement, and I'm the outsider. One night, while walking home after another failed attempt to get an interview, I hear a scream coming from a nearby alley. It's sudden, sharp, like a cry for help. I rush toward the noise, my heart pounding, but when I get there, the alley is empty. No one, just the echo of my own breath. I'm left with an unsettling silence. The next morning, I receive an anonymous note on my doorstep. Stop asking questions. I don't know who could have left it, but it makes my skin crawl. You decide to the depot. I start talking to people, trying to find out who's behind the development, who's benefiting from this sudden influx of money into the area. But it's like everyone's been given a script. They say nothing. No one will talk. I get a tip from an old local who once ran a store here before the gentrification started. He says the project is backed by a powerful developer linked to organized crime. He claims the resistance has been silenced one way or another, with anyone who objected to the changes mysteriously disappearing. I press for more details, but before he can finish, he looks over his shoulder nervously. "They're always listening," he mutters, then rushes off. As I investigate, the walls start closing in. My editor, who'd initially been encouraging, pulls my article. "Legal concerns," he says, his voice tense, avoiding my eyes. Something isn't right. It's as if someone's controlling the narrative. Someone with too much power. A few days later, I come home to find my apartment ransacked. My laptop is gone, but the most chilling thing is the message left for me. Stay quiet. The words are hastily painted on the wall, smeared across the room as if someone was in a hurry. I call the police, but when they arrive, the officer looks at me with indifference. They take my statement, but I can tell they don't believe me. This isn't the first time they've seen someone like me, an outsider, too curious for their own good. They're not going to help. I'm on my own. The next night, I return to the alley where I heard the scream. This time, I'm not leaving without answers. I walk down the narrow path, the shadows lengthening as the city's lights flicker. I reach the spot, but there's no one. No sign of a struggle, no sign of life. Then I see it, a small slip of paper on the ground, crumpled, as if it had been discarded hastily. I pick it up. It's a list of names. Several are crossed out, but one name is circled in bold: the developer. I don't know why I didn't connect the dots before, but now it all makes sense. The gentrification wasn't just about money. It was about control. They're not just taking over the neighborhood, they're erasing it. And anyone who stands in their way, they're next. Before I can react, I hear footsteps behind me. I turn just in time to see a figure step out of the darkness. He's tall, wearing a suit, his face partially obscured by shadows. His voice is calm, unnervingly so. "I'd suggest you leave," he says. "You've seen too much." I take a step back, my mind racing. I'm trapped. There's no way out now. But then, before I can move, I hear a car approaching. It's a black sedan, and it slows down as it nears us. The man looks toward the car, then back at me. He smiles, an empty, dangerous grin. "You should have stayed quiet," he says, his words hanging in the air. I don't have time to think. I turn and run, my feet pounding the pavement, the sound of my breath growing frantic. I don't know if I'll make it, but I can't stop now. Not when I've come this far. Not when the truth is right there, just out of reach. The city's lights blur as I disappear into the night. It's just another late-night shift. My truck's loaded with the usual deliveries. Nothing special. But when I pull into the deserted stretch of road, something feels off. I'm used to the solitude, but tonight there's an edge to it. My GPS glitches as I pull up to the facility. The sign reads Research Site, Authorized Personnel Only. I don't recognize the name, but the instructions are clear. I'm told to wait in the parking lot. Routine testing, they say. Stay overnight, just in case. I don't argue. The pay is good, and I don't mind a night of rest before heading back on the road. But it's never just a night of rest, is it? By midnight, I can't ignore the sounds any longer. Muffled screams echo through the walls of the facility, and faint mechanical whirring buzzes from deep inside the building. I try to shake it off, blaming it on the old equipment. But when I hear more screams, they aren't the sounds of machines. They're human. I knock on the door of the front office, but no one answers. That's when I notice the hallway lights flickering in the distance. Something about the place feels wrong. There's an underlying tension in the air, a heaviness that makes it hard to breathe. My curiosity gets the best of me, so I slip into the building when no one's around. The hallway stretches out in front of me, dimly lit, lined with locked doors. I hear the screams again. They come from the far end of the hall. My heart hammers in my chest. What could they be doing here? I find a door slightly ajar and peek inside. The room is cold and sterile. Behind glass, I see a row of transparent chambers. Inside, real people, are strapped down. Their eyes are wide with fear, their bodies twisted in unnatural positions. The machines around them beep and whir, tracking their every move. It's like a nightmare. I stumble backward, gasping for air. This isn't just a lab, it's a prison. Before I can move, I hear footsteps behind me. A man in a lab coat appears at the end of the hall, flanked by two security guards. They're calm, too calm. He looks at me, almost as if he's been expecting me. "You shouldn't be here," he says, his voice soft and threatening. "I'm afraid you've seen something you shouldn't have." He gestures to the guards, who step forward. "Please, just let me go." I beg. I won't say anything. I just need to leave. But they don't listen. The man smiles, and it's not a friendly smile. "You have two choices, my friend," he says, his eyes narrowing. "You can become part of the experiment, or you can disappear. Either way, you'll be helping us move forward." I don't know what he means, but my legs freeze. I've heard about places like this. I've seen documentaries, read the stories, but never did I think I'd be standing in one. The guards close in on me. I need to run. I don't care about the consequences anymore. I turn and sprint down the hallway, the sound of my footsteps echoing in the sterile, lifeless building. The sound of their pursuit follows close behind. I don't know where I'm going, only that I need to escape. As I round a corner, I hear the unmistakable sound of a truck starting up outside. My heart leaps. If I can just make it to the parking lot, I can get in and drive away. But it's not that easy. The doors to the parking lot are locked, and I realize too late that I've been led here. The gates are closed, the guards are waiting, and I'm trapped. The man in the lab coat steps out from the shadows, watching me with cold detachment. "This is your last chance," he says, his voice flat. "Make the right choice." I don't answer. There is no right choice. Only the certainty that I won't leave this place without being part of their experiment. Or worse, disappearing forever. As the guards advance, I realize I've made a choice without meaning to, and there's no way out now. It's odd how easily people can vanish in the digital age. One day, your closest friends are active, posting selfies and sharing their lives. The next, they're gone. It doesn't make sense. That's how it starts for me. Several of my closest friends simply disappear. First, their social media accounts go silent. Then, their phones are disconnected. Their apartments sit empty, with no warning or explanation. At first, I think it's a coincidence. Maybe they've moved on, found new places, new friends. But then, I get the message. It's from an unknown number with a single, chilling line. You're next. My stomach drops, and the quiet panic begins to take root. Idedipe. I'm an influencer with thousands of followers and a reputation I've spent years building. But these friends, these people I thought I knew, what if there's more to their disappearances than I realize? I start searching through their last posts, their messages. There's one thing in common. They all attended the same high-end networking event hosted by a luxury brand, an event I wasn't invited to. They were all given a VIP experience, as the event page described it. It doesn't take long before I find something unsettling. The attendees were encouraged to share their most personal secrets during a bonding exercise, but I can't find any trace of what that actually entailed. Just vague claims of trusting the process and embracing the truth. My curiosity becomes an obsession, so I reach out to a former attendee, someone I know through my work. She's reluctant to talk, but after some coaxing, she admits that the brand was more than it appeared. There were whispers of blackmail, of secrets being used to manipulate people into silence. And then I find the documents. A series of emails exchanged between my friends and a representative from the brand. They're talking about money. A lot of it. And about something far darker. The brand has been covering up illegal activities that my friends must have known about. That's why they're gone. That's why they left no trace. And that's why they sent me the warning. You're next. I try to go public with everything. I want to expose the brand, to share the truth, but there's a problem. My own secrets, things I thought were buried long ago, begin to surface. Old friends, old lovers, things I wish I could forget, all come rushing back. I'm contacted by the brand's representatives. They offer me a deal. Keep quiet, and they'll let me live. Let me continue to build my brand. The alternative is unthinkable. But it's not just the brand. I start receiving calls from people I don't know, threatening messages, disturbing texts. They know where I am, what I'm doing. They know everything. My reputation falls apart. One by one, my followers turn on me, accusing me of being part of the scam. They say I'm just another puppet, another pawn in the game. Soon, no one is on my side. My face is everywhere. The headlines scream my name, and it's never in a good light. Then one night, as I'm going through my messages, I get another text from the unknown number. The only way out is to vanish too. I can hear my heart pounding as I stand frozen. What does it mean? Should I leave everything behind? Start fresh? Or is it already too late? I gather my things, pack a bag, and leave my apartment. The city feels like a trap. The streets are too familiar, too dangerous. I don't know where I'm going, but I have to go somewhere, anywhere but here. But as I walk down the empty street, I hear footsteps behind me. Someone's following me, slowly at first, then faster. I don't look back. Don't forget to subscribe. You are the best.